So obviously I'm biased. I think it's a tremendous way to start out. And if someone said, hey, how do I get started in real estate? House hacking is my absolute number one.
Define house hacking.
Living in a property that also produces income. So it's providing you shelter and income.
You're renting out the other rooms
or other units. Yep. Yeah. So it's providing you shelter and providing you income at the same time under one roof or adjacent roofs. What is so powerful about that is with FHA, you can put as little as 3.5% down. Conventional, I know, can be 3 to 5%. You can speak more intelligently on that. With that, if you have a decent amount of down payment saved, you could put less down. And also if the property needs work, you can use some of that money to try to increase the value. So if someone comes to me and say, Jake, I got 150 grand, I want to house hack a duplex, and maybe both units have some deferred maintenance, rents are super low.
Welcome back to the Reno-Tahoe Real Estate Insider. Today I'm sitting down with Jake Andronico. Jake is an investment property specialist with Address Income based out of Reno, Nevada. Today we're going to dive into Reno multifamily, small multifamily, 2 to 10 units specifically. Jake's a master at that. Jake, for people that don't know you, can you give a brief intro of who you are, and what you do?
Yeah, thank you, Shay. Thanks for having me. I moved to Reno in 2019, originally from Northern California. Got started house hacking, so bought a single family home up near UNR. Lived in one of the bedrooms, rented out the other 4 to help cover the mortgage. Didn't know what I was doing, collecting rent on Venmo. Had people partying and was trying to learn how to be a landlord and try to save money. Figuring it all out. Ended up working for a private equity company for a couple of years that had about 2,000 single family homes out in the Midwest. And that ended up going bankrupt. So I was actually able to save money and get another property that I house hacked again, about a quarter mile away from the original one when I moved here. And so had success in that and had some pretty hard failure in private equity with the fund going bankrupt. My family was invested. I was personally invested as well. So kind of saw both sides of the real estate coin, but felt like I knew how to communicate with small investors because I was one, got really obsessed with the process and the nitty gritty, the numbers, and knew that there was a significant need. So when my broker posted an Indeed ad saying, hey, I'm starting a small investment focused brokerage, I was all in, ended up being one of the first agents at Address Income, and been there almost 3 years now.
In Address Income, for people that don't know, they've actually got a software that helps people determine rents and returns on investment properties. So go check it out, addressincome.com. Let's dive right into it, Jake. So why is the 2 to 4 unit category specifically the sweet spot in Reno currently?
It's a great place to get started, and Reno is not for everyone. Just say that up front. We are not a cheap market. So if you're comparing Reno to the Midwest, you're going to be like, wow, prices are expensive. The reason is we are very land constrained. So we can't spread and build like in Austin, Texas, or like places in the Midwest where prices can be much cheaper, but you may not quite get the appreciation that you can in Reno. So Reno is definitely a long-term play. There's a lot of money moving from California into Reno, and 2 to 4 multifamily is an awesome place to start if you're focused on earning income through real estate with a smaller investment. One, because it's more approachable. They are cheaper than larger multifamily, obviously less units. And also the financing is considerably better. So as a lender, you're aware that you can get owner-occupant financing if you live in a unit down to 5% or 3.5% FHA. So very approachable, as well as 15 to 25% down if it's a pure investment. So it's a great start. It's a great place to start. It's not an overwhelming amount of tenants or units as well. And there's a decent amount of them. Obviously, compared to single family, there's going to be way less. I think there's about 1,200 to 1,500 single family homes active in Northern Nevada. And there's about 25 to 30 2 to 4 unit properties. So there's a lot less choice, but financing and price point are the main reasons why it's a great place to start.
What makes Reno so attractive specifically?
We are one of the first major cities in a different state outside of one of the highest per capita net worth places on the planet, which is the Bay Area. We're 3.5 hours away. We're obviously adjacent to Lake Tahoe.
Silicon Valley,
Yes.
Bay Area, San Francisco. Yep.
Yeah. So there's a lot of people running around with a lot of money that inject capital into Reno. They have been doing it for decades. And so in my opinion, based on the data, it's a very safe place to park money and grow. We've also, since the Great Recession, been able to diversify the economy quite a bit. So steering away from solely relying on casino, restaurant, tourism work into manufacturing, more tech jobs, and continuing to expand there. So we've really diversified our economy in Reno, which has been great.
I'm very bullish on Reno. It's as close as you can get to California, to the Bay Area, without being actually in California.
Exactly.
Property taxes are minuscule compared to most states.
Yep.
And you are land constrained, like you said. It reminds me of the Bay Area in that sense. In the Bay, you've got the ocean on one side, you've got mountains on the other. In Reno, you've got the Sierra Nevadas on the west, you've got BLM land to the east. You can build north and south, but there's still tribal reservations as well to deal with and things like that. So I am very bullish on Reno in the long term, which I've said multiple times. Walk me through now. Yeah, let's talk about the money side of it. Walk me through what financially, what financing actually looks like on a 2 to 4 unit property. What can someone get away with on down payment if they're willing to live in one unit versus being a pure investor? So, and I can help speak to this as well, and then we can talk about what also then changes once you hit 5 units or more. So,
Yep.
Yeah, walk me through what financing actually looks like on a 2 to 4 unit multifamily if someone's actually looking to live in it.
So obviously I'm biased. I think it's a tremendous way to start out. And if someone said, hey, how do I get started in real estate? House hacking is my absolute number one.
Define house hacking.
Living in a property that also produces income.
So
So providing you shelter and income.
you're renting out the other rooms or the
Or other units. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's providing you shelter and providing you income at the same time under one roof or adjacent roofs. What is so powerful about that is with FHA, you can put as little as 3.5% down. Conventional, I know, can be 3 to 5%. You can speak more intelligently on that.
That is correct.
With that, if you have a decent amount of down payment saved, you could put less down. And also if the property needs work, you can use some of that money to try to increase the value. So if someone comes to me and say, Jake, I got 150 grand, I want to house hack a duplex, and maybe both units have some deferred maintenance, rents are super low, maybe one of them's vacant. The strategy, in my opinion, and what would make the most sense in the shortest amount of time to add value would be to go into the worst unit, renovate it for as cheaply as possible while you're living there, then move into the next one, rent for a higher amount in the one that you just renovated, and do the same thing, and then move out. You've now lived there for 2 out of the last 5 years. So if you increase the value, you get the Section 121 benefit of being able to have $250K.
Deferred capital gains on your taxes. Yep. You get a shelter of $250,000 in capital gains that you don't have to pay on.
And I'm not a CPA, so obviously
I'm not a CPA either, but it is a real thing.
But that's my understanding.
It's real. It's real.
Yeah. So it can be an immensely powerful strategy with increasing value in the property, tax advantages, and then also having someone help you cover your mortgage while living there and getting landlord experience. And honestly, seeing if owning rental property is right for you. It's not right for everyone. I've had investors, become eventually tired landlords, and they're like, hey, I want to get out of this. And that is totally okay.
Yeah.
It's a great way to start and fairly low risk to be able to see if that route is for you or not.
Absolutely. So you move in or you buy it as a primary so you can put a low down payment, 3 to 5% on a conventional loan. Live in one unit, rent out the other. You upgrade the property as you live there. You move out. You can then buy another primary residence. You can do the same thing on that one, and then you just do it over and over again. And the benefit of this being on the mortgage side, so I'm a mortgage advisor in Reno-Tahoe. mortgageupside.com. You can check me out there. Shay Phillips. The benefit of that is you can continually put low down payments down because they're all primary residences because you're living in them.
Yep.
Which is powerful. What changes when you get to 5 units or more on the financing side?
That's a great question. So I talk to investors that want to get started in the multifamily space, and they're like, I want an 8 or 10 unit building. And a lot of times I talk them out of it, especially if it's going to be their first multifamily property. Once you get to 5 units and up, you get away from the residential loan side and you get into commercial financing, DSCR, debt service coverage ratio. That is a whole different world. My broker calls it landing a plane on fire in terms of DSCR financing. A lot of the 5 unit and up multifamily, you don't know your true interest rate until you're right about to close. You might get a range, but it's a lot more nuanced. A lot of the commercial lenders won't even lift a finger unless the loan is over $1 million. So if you're buying a 6 unit and the loan is less than $1 million, we kind of call that the dead zone. So it can be a much more complicated process. I would say it's more suited for either people who have cash, that can be a super strong strategy to get a lot of cash flow. People with a significant down payment. We have seen deals fall through in recent years because with DSCR financing, they're going to take a look at the actual rents today, which if it's a good deal, typically they're going to be well below market. So there was a 10 unit in Midtown, 2-bedroom inventory rented for $850. We had a property manager walk it and they were actually in pretty good shape. He's like, we could do a deep clean and get this up to $1,400 in 2 weeks. And I would have 10 applicants in that time. But the bank doesn't care. They're only going to look at that current income, that $850. And so the investor would have had to put 60% down on that deal to make it pencil for the bank. He was going to put 50%, but he wanted that extra 10 to actually be able to renovate the units. So he had to back out and someone bought it cash. So I drive by it now in Midtown and it's all done up and it did really well.
And you shed a tear every time.
Yeah. Can't win them all.
Yeah. What does a good deal look like on paper right now in Reno specifically? Give me the numbers, the cap rate, price per door, price per square foot, so someone listening can actually benchmark what a good deal looks like.
It's a great question. And you mentioned our address income portal, our investor tool. That is what allows us ultimately for our clients to put everything on the same playing field so you can see what true value actually is, because you don't know until you compare it to everything else. So from what I see from a price per door, price per square foot, I just sold 6 units on G Street in Old Sparks. That was under $180 a foot. It's like $173 per square foot. There's been multiple comps on renovated inventory for mid to high 200s per square foot. Price per square foot is a very good initial metric in multifamily, especially if you're getting quality inventory. And what I mean when I say quality inventory, the average age of small multifamily is 1948. So if there's anything kind of 80s to 2000s, maybe stucco, maybe larger units, more bedrooms. So that one on G Street, for instance, was a triplex with 3-bed, 1.5 bath, 1,200 plus square foot townhome style units, and then a 2-bed, 1-bath brick house totaling 4 units. And he got that for around $170 a foot. So that was an amazing deal. And then typically you'll see anything that is showing a 6 cap is going to be a good deal.
All right, let's break that down 1 second. 6 cap. For people that aren't maybe not be familiar with cap rates, if you are familiar with cap rates, feel free to skip ahead a couple minutes. But for people that aren't familiar with cap rates, what is a 6 cap?
Cap rates confuse a lot of people. It's actually incredibly simple. I will say first, cap rates have nothing to do with financing. So just throw financing out the window for a second.
Getting a loan. They have
Correct.
nothing to do with getting a loan.
Cap rates are just the net operating income divided by the purchase price. So income comes in, expenses go out. What's left over annually
Your profit.
divided by the purchase price. Your profit divided by the purchase price. Exactly.
Perfect. Okay.
Yep.
So let's keep going on that.
So a 6 cap would be if you get $60,000 in NOI, net operating income, and you're paying
$1 million.
$1 million bucks.
Mhm.
Yep, exactly. So that is great on entry, we call it, actual rents. So even if they're low, if you can get a 6 cap on actuals, that's amazing, because there's likely a path to increase the rents through renovations, maybe get up to a 7 and 8 cap.
Do you factor in, let's say there's a loan involved, do you factor in pay down on the principal balance of the loan into that or no?
With cap rate, it doesn't have to do with financing. That would be cash on cash.
Well, let's say, I mean, it's part of the return though, right? In a way. So that basically knows what you're saying.
What I think you're, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're kind of getting into internal rate of return.
Perhaps. I'm basically saying if you're profiting, let's say 60 grand over a year,
Yeah.
but you also paid down your loan balance 10 grand, does that get factored into the cap rate?
No, because cap rates don't have anything to do with financing.
Okay.
We do project cash.
So
on
it's
cash.
it's true cash in your pocket. It's not, it's what's
Correct.
left over at the end of the year. Got
The
it.
reason why we do that, and we analyze the entire market, single family, multifamily, and compare cap rates for it all, so that's how we see those outliers, is because people's financing is totally different.
Yeah.
Some
Everyone
people
has it's a unique.
It's very unique.
Yeah.
Some people may not be financing, they're using cash.
Right.
So that's why we don't start there, but then we overlay it with people's personalized financing. You can get more into the weeds.
Got it. Okay. That makes sense. Okay. So sorry, I went off on a little bit of a tangent there. So price per door, price per square foot, cap rate. So 6% on the cap rates where you want to start. Anything above that.
Those are going to be rare. You're not going to see a lot of them. When you do, recommend moving quickly.
Better be ready to go. Okay.
Yeah. In Midtown, we'll see a lot of stuff sell for as low as 3.5 caps. I know that sounds crazy, but it happens.
There's
And
probably a lot of value add that can potential there, right? If they're going to sell for 3.5.
yes, if you can find those deals.
Okay.
That is rare, but it does happen. And then we see as high as probably 5.5 caps in Midtown. But 4.5 is pretty normal,
Okay.
especially on nice inventory.
Perfect. So I want to take a second. If you're an investor listening to this podcast, this conversation, and you want detailed data on investment properties in Northern Nevada, Jake, can you plug your address income tool real quick? I know you just mentioned it briefly, but give us a short 1 or 2 sentence summary on what it is and how I can help.
Yeah. So super quick, the idea behind the software is analyzing the entire single family and multifamily market based on a bunch of rental data. So think Investor Zillow. That's essentially what we've created.
So it's Zillow for investors. It's got a map. You can look at all the different inventory. You can see what rents are. You can see what else?
You can see what the projected cap rates are, and we take out actual property taxes, like you mentioned, insurance, maintenance, HOA. We have different rental comps coming into all single family and multifamily assets. And then what's cool is you can customize anything. I'm happy to give anyone listening to this access totally free, no strings attached. But you can actually put in your own metrics, your own loan scenario. If you wanted to offer less on a property, if you think you can get higher rents, if you want to change any of the vacancy factor, if you're doing property management, if you're not, each property has an individual property calculator built into it, whether it's single family or multi.
Okay. Excellent. So, and if you're anybody like me, you're skeptical. One of the first questions I had for Jake and his colleague Brad was, how do these rents get verified? Well, just want to let you guys know, they actually go in and an agent verifies that the rental data is estimated to be as accurate as possible. So it's very good data. If you want a free trial of this, reach out to Jake. I'll include his contact info in the description below. So let's get into the next question, or sorry, take a step back. Addressincome.com is where you can find that.
Yes, addressincome.com.
Addressincome.com. So let's dive into the next question. Where in Reno are the numbers best right now? Now, when I say Reno, I mean Northern Nevada. We're talking Midtown Reno. We're talking Sparks, which is North Reno, Fernley, which is the outskirts of Reno, Gardnerville, Minden, Carson City. Those are all south of Reno, but they are the greater Reno area. What are you seeing right now? And where are the deals, where are the numbers penciling the best?
If you're looking at small multifamily or multifamily in general, there's going to be pockets where more was built previously than other areas. So the numbers typically work best in Old Sparks, Fernley, Carson. In terms of quality of inventory, just objectively based on price per square foot and age of the asset, Gardnerville is amazing. The reason I say that is in the Gardnerville Ranchos, there's this little pocket of mainly duplexes that are symmetrical, 2-car garages, 2 and 3 bedroom inventory. So there have been sales that have been very competitive. Gardnerville is one of the quickest areas to move inventory on the resale side when you're selling small multifamily. And there are places down there that are 3 beds, 2 baths, over 1,200 square feet with a 2-car garage on each side for high 5s to upper 6s, depending on.
What is that pricing out per square foot?
It's in the low to mid 200s, which there's stuff in Midtown that sells for 350 to 500, depending on what it is. So, and those are built from the early mid 80s, even into the early 2000s. So much newer. They typically have AC. They obviously, like I said, have 2-car garages, a lot of them, in-unit laundry, a backyard, a front yard.
And those are the ones in Gardnerville?
Yes.
Okay.
On a larger lot too. Beautiful mountain views. And people always get a little bit fearful of the rental market down there. It's kind of sneaky because a lot of people who work in South Lake Tahoe go down to Kingsbury or up and live in Gardnerville for it to be a little bit cheaper. And it's only 30, 35 minutes door to door. So
yeah, Gardnerville, for people who've never been to Gardnerville, it's south of Carson City. It is absolutely beautiful.
Gorgeous.
It's in the foothills of the Sierra Nevadas on the basically South Lake Tahoe foothills. And when it snows in the winter, the mountains are white capped, but the valley's green.
Yeah.
There's horses
like right
everywhere.
now, it's perfect time.
Yeah, it is so beautiful. It does get a bit windy down there, but that's every mountain valley, right? Every mountain valley gets windy.
All of Reno.
Yeah. At the beginning, you mentioned buyers often have to make offers before seeing every unit. Most people would never do that with a house, of course. How do you help buyers get comfortable with that? And how does a buyer get comfortable with that? And then how do you help protect them?
It's a great question. Truthfully, some don't, and that is totally okay. I want to be as upfront and honest about the whole process and what is most common. The reason that you would likely have to make an offer sight unseen without actually getting into the property is because there's likely tenants. Sometimes sellers don't tell tenants that the property is for sale. Sometimes they do, and they have a great relationship and the tenants are super cool. They're willing to have showings. But in most instances, they do not want to show a property because they do not want to disturb the tenants from someone who may just be a tire kicker. They may be totally a serious investor with cash or pre-approval ready to go, but they may just be someone who wouldn't be optimal for that asset. And now they're disturbing the tenants and kind of getting nowhere. Tenants involve a level of complexity that you typically do not see on the single family side. Typically you can get into a house, even if it's owner occupied, they're going to go grab lunch for an hour or so when there's showings. So the way that I help on the buy side, protecting the buyer, is to structure the contract. So if the seller accepts their offer and says, yes, we will sell you for these terms, the buyer can back out for whatever reason. If they walk each unit and it's a nightmare, it's much more deferred maintenance than they thought, there's a huge hole in the ceiling, whatever the case, they can back out of that contract. If they do inspections and find something that is ultimately a deal breaker, the contract is structured so the worst case scenario is if they were to cancel and back out of the transaction, they would be out just the inspection dollars. A huge part of my job is to protect buyers' earnest money deposit, which is typically 1% to 3% of the purchase price, held with title and it shows the seller, hey, I'm putting some money towards this transaction. I'm serious. So that is a huge part of my job, is protecting that EMD.
Likewise on the lending side.
Yep.
What are estoppels?
Estoppels are typically received in escrow by the buyers, and the seller and or property manager will go to the tenants with a form provided by the buyer. We have multiple. And it's typically says, I am this tenant. Here's how many people are living with me. Here is the rent I'm paying. Here's when my lease started. Here's when my lease ends. You get the actual leases for review, either in escrow or before escrow, depending on the seller and the property manager or listing agent of the property. And it is to verify that information with the tenant specifically at that time. So obviously, if they've lived there for 10 years, there's probably been things that have changed in that decade. So you just want to verify, hey, is this actually, are you this person? Are you paying this rent? Just making sure everything is on the up and up.
So it's just tenant verified information, essentially.
Exactly. Very important.
Why do buyers skip estoppels? Do they skip getting?
I never recommend skipping estoppels or inspections. Have I seen it? Yes, but I would never recommend someone do that.
Don't skip estoppels. All right, let's talk about the value add play. So value add play, you can add value to a property by making it nicer. Talk me through a real value add scenario in Reno where someone buys it under market, what they do and what it looks like 2 to 3 years later in the small multifamily space, and how that can translate to dollars in their pocket.
So I sold a triplex in Sparks in 2024. And
Sparks is North Reno for anyone that doesn't know.
Yep. Old Sparks, 89431 is a zip code. A lot of older, small multifamily, kind of 2 to 10 units. This is a triplex, and my client purchased it for $665,000 in 2024. And only a year later, I helped him sell it for a little over $783,000. His intention was not to flip it, but he did the process correctly, and we were able to maximize the value, and he was able to maximize rents. So the typical strategy is to purchase the property. Either there are vacant units or rents are low, and you go in and increase rents, see if the tenant wants to stay. If they do, great. If they don't, they move out, and you renovate that unit. What I offer to all my clients is I will personally pay for professional photos in each unit post-renovation. And the reason why that's so important is because once the unit is renovated with those professional photos, they can now use that in their rental listing when they're trying to get the highest rent they can, what the market will bear. And if we ever go to resell it, now I have photos of all the renovated units, what the condition that they're in.
Empty.
Correct. Yes. There's no clutter from tenants. People obviously live in the units. So, my house is cluttered. If I were to, photograph it right now, it would not be amazing. It would be better before we moved in to get professional photos, right? It can be really powerful. And I know it sounds simple, but no one does professional photos on rentals. There's not always professional photos on $1 million plus homes or multifamily.
Yeah.
So in the rental space, property managers, investors, a lot of it's, it's just a rental. Well, if you and I will spend the money for my clients, like I said, spend a few extra $100 to get those professional photos, it instantly stands out. And on that triplex that I'm talking about, there was a 2-bed, 2-bath little standalone home and then a duplex up front. In that 2-2, the property manager was projecting maybe $1,775, maybe $1,800. I took professional photos after he renovated, and they were able to get $2,000 a month in 10 days in the winter, which is usually a slower leasing time. So that's just a little anecdote of where that works.
$200 to $250 and
which is huge
per
especially
month,
over,
which is $2,500 to $3,000 a year.
Yeah,
that's huge. That's a huge ROI play.
and it helps on the resale as well.
So I know you mentioned at the beginning, multifamily is not for everybody. And you mentioned that the value add play is go in, fix it up, increase rents. What would make multifamily not for somebody?
If you are not comfortable with making an offer subject to viewing a property, making an offer before you get to walk each unit, you probably should not get involved in small multifamily. It's not to say that I haven't sold deals where we could walk every unit, but in 90% of transactions, that's not possible. If you are not comfortable with
Raising rents?
if you're not comfortable with raising rents, there's obviously the business side and the human side. It's where people live. Then it's difficult to get in the space because that's part of the process. If your goal is to increase value, if you are okay with the property making less money and you value that side more, then by all means do it. It's your property at the end of the day. But if your ultimate goal is to increase cash flow, which ultimately increases the value, then those rents would need to increase. So,
Yep, absolutely. And you, off camera, you talked about there was a multifamily project which was full of veterans,
yep,
right? And we talked about how, yeah, that would, no matter what numbers look like on paper, that would not, I just wouldn't do it. I wouldn't
totally.
touch
Me
it.
either. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I rent by the room to students and young professionals, and the average rent is like $650 a room. And I've tried to slowly improve the properties. And so it's not to say be greedy and go crazy, and ultimately the market will bear what it bears, but
Right.
you're trying to provide a safe, clean, nice place to live. And I've been through some buildings where on those 3 bedrooms, for instance, the rents were super low, but there was an active leak when someone showered into their living room. And so they had a towel on the floor. That's not a great situation to be in if your rent's
That's a health
low.
and safety hazard.
Exactly. So there's both sides of the coin.
Mold gets in, you start having health issues from mold.
Not stuff you want.
Yeah, you don't want that. And thank you to our veterans for your service.
Yes.
Back to the value add play, what physical features of a property actually move the needle on rents and tenant retention? What do most, and then I'll ask you a question after that.
What moves the value from a rental standpoint, tenant standpoint, is definitely kind of similar to a resale of a home. Kitchens, bathroom, if there's any outdoor space, and curb appeal. A tenant is going to be shopping rentals similarly to a home buyer shopping homes. Curb appeal, price point, if it's close to their work, schools, if they have kids, it's actually a fairly similar process. So trying to maximize the tenant enjoyment with amenities, again, if it's kind of more affordable rents, if there's a backyard space, just trying to keep everything neat and tidy, make sure landscaping is taken care of, there's good curb appeal on the property, proper parking, trash. If it's shared trash or individual trash cans, recycling, all that sort of stuff matters.
What do most investors overlook when they're walking a property?
A lot of investors overlook, and it's not their fault. I overlook it too because you can't actually see it, but stuff that you can't see. So on older properties, I mentioned that the average age of small multifamily was 1948. That's when you start getting into the sewer line, or there's one in the Northwest with a buried oil tank that was slurried, meaning it was filled with sand. And that didn't come up until someone got into inspections. So knowing those things up front of, hey, here's the age, here's the area, you may see this, is important.
So it's the things you can't see.
Yep. Sometimes they're literally underground.
Yeah. For the selling side, so let's talk about the selling side of multifamily. Why do most small multifamily listings in Reno get marketed poorly? And what does a well-prepared resale package actually look like? I know you had mentioned earlier, there's a lot of times there's not even professional photos done. Why is that?
A lot of realtors don't like selling tenant-occupied properties, and I totally get it. showings are not easy. You're dealing with another party, and they may be amazing. They may be difficult to work with. It totally depends on the situation. But small multifamily is in this weird area where not a lot of people pay attention because it's typically not at the volume that anyone cares about. So obviously there's a ton of time, money, and energy put into single family and larger multifamily, but sort of this missing middle, 2 to 10, just using as an example arbitrarily in Reno as an arbitrary range. It's kind of forgotten about.
So
but ironically,
it's not a huge payday for the agent based on the amount of work.
Yeah, and they're not focused on it typically. So it's a one-off every 2 to 3 years or 5 years or what have you. So it's just they kind of slap it on MLS and hope an investor comes in and buys it quickly.
Right.
Ironically, it can be someone's retirement or a huge portion of their net worth or all of their net worth. And it absolutely deserves a ton of time and attention and care and understanding both sides of what are buyers looking for when you're selling, vice versa, and being able to communicate what you're actually selling is the biggest thing. Sometimes they're not properly shown online. Even Zillow just recently changed the multifamily listings 2 to 4, showing duplex, triplex, or fourplex. But that just recently happened in the last 6 months.
They all used to say multifamily, right?
Yes, and it'll say 8 beds, 2 baths, 4,000 square feet, and there's one photo,
Right.
and it's for sale. And you're like, what is this?
Yeah.
What's the bed bath count? How many units? Who pays utilities? Is there a garage? What's the parking situation? Is there in-unit laundry? What am I looking at?
Right. Is this a mansion or multifamily?
Yeah, exactly.
Who's buying these properties, and what do out-of-state or 1031 buyers specifically need to see before they pull the trigger? I guess I answered my own question there. It's, a lot of 1031 exchanges and out-of-state investors or in-state investors. What do they need to see before they pull the trigger on a multifamily deal, on a purchase?
On the sell side, having all of the leases, income, expense breakdown for however many years you've owned it, at least 2 years is really helpful. So getting all the numbers dialed in on that side, being very clear about who pays what utilities, if you have any utility bills, and obviously people are going to be very cognizant of the condition. So roof age is a big one. I don't know what it is about roofs, but that is sometimes a huge ROI for sellers. Depending on the roof, they're not that expensive. There are much more expensive things that are more common: electrical, plumbing, HVAC. But for whatever reason, whenever there's a listing with a new roof or recent roof, always gets more attention and buzz. And I was just getting a quote for a fourplex I sold in Midtown, and it was cheaper than my single family home to replace the roof. It was like 11 grand. My single family was 14 because it's just a big box. It's very basic structure.
Just an A-frame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming people would think it might be 30 grand or 40 grand or something, and it's actually not that expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
If someone's sitting on the fence right now, a buyer, they have the money, they have the interest, what's the one thing they're telling themselves that's keeping them from moving forward, and what would you advise?
This is a long-term game. A lot of these properties have been around longer than we've been alive, and they will continue to be after we're gone. I think a lot of people think very short-term, and real estate is not a short-term game. The most successful people that I see in real estate who own a lot of properties have built it over decades, not 30 years, not 30 months. So I think there's a lot of stuff on TikTok and social media of, how I went from 0 to 12K a month passively in 24 months. The level of risk involved in something like that is unbelievably high. And you do have one-off success stories where everything went perfectly right. It's possible, but very unlikely. So anyone on the fence, I just had a conversation with a buddy of mine, and we were talking about renting versus buying. In a lot of cases, objectively, from just a dollar standpoint, it is cheaper to rent, especially in somewhere like Midtown,
That's so
than it is to buy.
refreshing. That's so refreshing to hear an agent say that.
It's true. You can't argue with that
It is
data.
true. It is true.
And people who can earn a good living, rent, and invest the difference, keep doing it. That is an amazing strategy. The problem is 99% of people don't do that, and they spend the extra money they would have been saving. And that's why people who own homes, in retirement have a much higher net worth than people who have been renting that whole time because they have nothing to show for it. And they've paid the landlord hundreds of thousands of dollars over that time.
A house is a forced savings account.
Exactly.
Essentially.
Yep.
That's great. Jake, thank you so much for your time. For people that want to work with you, what's the best way they can connect with you?
You can look me up online, Jake Andronico, or shoot me a quick text, 415-233-1796.
Awesome. If you're in the multifamily space, Reno is a fantastic market. Jake, as you've seen, is highly knowledgeable. He's an expert, and he's done it himself. Reach out if you'd like to work with Jake. And that's going to be a wrap for this one. Jake, thank you so much.
Thank you, Shay. This is awesome.